right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this Moneyshow Cannabis Virtual Expo. I'm so pleased to introduce our speaker for this session, Luis Merchan, the President, CEO, and Director of Flora Growth Corporation. Mr. Merchan has a background in corporate strategy, merchandising, expense management, and customer experience. And to our wonderful viewers, please type any questions that you may have into the live chat box. Time permitting, at the end of this presentation, I will be announcing questions so that Luis may answer them. And with that said, thank you so much for speaking with us today, Luis. If you need anything, I'll be right here on mute. The floor's all yours.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I'd like to thank the team at Moneyshow for hosting us today. This is an exciting topic. We're going to talk about navigating an evolving international cannabis market, and we thought there's no better case for how to navigate the global cannabis landscape as Flora Growth, as we are a company that has been founded under the premise of becoming a global leader in the cannabis trade. So let's get started. As Charlie mentioned, we will take questions at the end of the presentation. I like to be brief, so I allow for a lot of interaction with the participants. Okay, so this is a picture of the beautiful landscape of Bucaramanga, Colombia. And I think this is a great place to start when you're talking about cannabis and you're discussing how cannabis over the long term, especially wholesale and derivatives, are going to continue to commoditize as prices continue to be compressed. The companies that are able to grow cannabis at one of the lowest production costs in the world, in some of the best geographies in the world, are the ones that are going to win that game, the commodity game. And Colombia is a perfect geography for it. It's located alongside the equator. It's a beautiful place to grow many agricultural commodities, as you probably know. Flowers, coffee, and many other agricultural commodities, such as cannabis, are grown in this space. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. Of course, the problem in the cannabis industry is significant. First, is the regulatory and legal environment. From a global perspective, there are many barriers of entry based on different industries, and that presents a significant challenge for companies that want to become global players in the cannabis market space. There's a narrow focus. A lot of the players are focusing on APIs, pharmaceutical inputs, or growing cannabis, dry flower, or its derivatives, but there isn't enough, and the offering is very commoditized and is very fragmented. This presents, of course, a significant opportunity to empower consumers and to empower patients and provide them with great solutions for what they're looking for in their lives. So our mission as the company is to build a design-led collective of plant-based wellness and lifestyle brands that deliver the most compelling customer experiences in the world, one community at a time. Clearly, we are very different than any other cannabis company out there. We're putting the customer experience first because we believe that consumers and patients are looking for that out of a cannabis company. We have based our growth strategy on 3 strategic pillars. The first one is on a global expansion, we're focusing on the wholesale. And this is anchored by our cultivation facility in Bucaramanga. We have been able to achieve one of the lowest production costs in the world at 6 cents per gram of dry flower. And when you want to play in the global cannabis marketplace, you need to ensure that you're growing cannabis at a very competitive price. When you compare a production cost to that of, say, North America, you're talking about 20-25 times more expensive growing in North America than that of Colombia. And that will be a significant competitive advantage. The second one is a portfolio of products, our house of brands. This is very important in the global cannabis marketplace because there are lower barriers of entry for consumer packaged goods. And also, end products have the benefit of better margins. You have the benefit of also having a one-to-one personalized connection with consumers. You understand what consumers are looking for, the trends that they need, the wellness trends, and also the medical needs that they may have. And then the third one is pharmaceutical medical products. And this is anchored on the need of this industry to provide scientific-based research that will allow consumers and patients to benefit from the many benefits of cannabinoid plants and plant-based wellness. So let's talk a little bit about why our company is different. Clearly, our focus is on our people. We believe that in order for a global cannabis company to be successful, you have to have a very diverse group from multiple backgrounds, great brand builders, disciplined operators that can execute on the fundamentals, that have a track record of results. And that's what we have been able to build at Flora Growth. It always begins with people, but it also builds into design. We want to make sure that we design incredible experiences and incredible products that are focused on building communities. At the end of the day, our focus is to ensure that we reach the end consumer and they have a personal connection with us. So here is a breakdown of our leadership team. Of course, I have a background in retail and CPG over almost 15 years in working for companies as Target and Macy's. But we have James Cho, an incredible designer, founder and CEO of Vessel, a company that we just acquired, who was just announced today as Chief Strategy Officer of the company. Jessie Kastner, who's listening in on the webcast. She's our Chief Marketing Officer. Jason Warnock, Chief Revenue, and James Williams, our VP of Corporate Development. Incredible, diverse backgrounds, very agile, very nimble. And then from a board perspective, this is very important. Cannabis companies, especially those that want to play in the global marketplace, need to ensure that they have a great level of transparency and that there's enough governance and strategy from a board perspective. And this starts with our chairman, Bernie Wilson, a former vice chairman of PricewaterhouseCoopers, Mark Mastronardi, the chief stores officer at Macy's, Juan Carlos Gomez, a major player in the South American marketplace, Dr. Beverly Richardson, and Dr. Annabelle Manalo Morgan, who anchor our scientific team in the board. And then, of course, now let's move into what's happening in the global marketplace. In order for a company to survive, you have to be exceptionally nimble, especially a cannabis company. The regulatory changes in the global marketplace are happening on a daily basis. Some of them benefit the cannabis trade, some of them do not. A significant one that was a great step and put Colombia at the forefront of cannabis reform was the change that happened last August and that happened in December. And to summarize what happened in Colombia, we are now able from Colombia to export dry flower, to manufacture and distribute food and beverage and ingestible products, to manufacture and sell custom pharmaceutical formulas to patients. And now those formulas are going to be covered by insurance companies. And lastly, marketing is allowed broadly from cannabis products in the Colombian marketplace. So clearly, Colombia now set itself as a leader in the regulatory standpoint from a cannabis perspective, and companies that are anchored there, such as Flora Growth, are benefiting from that significant regulatory change. As a global company, it is very important. You probably heard early on the trend in cannabis that meant that you needed to have a vertically integrated supply chain. And that is incredibly difficult in the increasingly challenging global marketplace. Supply chain and disruptions have been probably the most significant challenge that CEOs and companies have experienced over the last 18 months. We have taken a different route. We have taken the route of partnering with great experienced leaders across the globe that can help us develop a distribution network, improve our revenue channels, or improve the sales from products that are already in existence. 3 of those examples are on this slide. The first one is Hoshi International, a company that wants to distribute wholesale cannabis, flower and derivatives in Europe. Their focus is Europe and their assets are in Portugal and Malta. Tropi, who's the largest distributor of CPG products in Colombia, who is distributing now many of our products through the over 93,000 distribution points. And then Calella, who's a JV and has an incredible brand. Avaria's department company has an incredible brand called Calella, which is a top pain cream in Canada, sold at Walmart and many other places. We are now working with them to distribute their brands in South America, Colombia, and of course, in the United States in the future. It's also important to talk about being nimble and go where the market goes. And it's incredibly important what's happening with the cannabis trends as consumers are reducing the stigma of consuming cannabis recreationally or medicinally. They are looking for alternatives that are sophisticated. And some of those alternatives are delivery methods. And Vessel is an industry leader in the cannabis consumer technology space. They develop some of the best well-designed vaping devices and dry herb products. And we finished their acquisition last month, but they also complement our team exceptionally well. That's why Jesse Kastner, who's on this webcast, will now join our marketing team and the Flora Growth corporate team. And its founder, James Joel, was announced today as our Chief Strategy Officer. So what you see here is our entire ecosystem. And you will think, why do we have so many things we're working on? And that is barriers of entry. We realized that as a cannabis company, we needed to ensure that we have the ability to penetrate a market with certain categories of product. And as I mentioned, it looks like it's very significant, but it's anchored under 3 growth pillars: wholesale product, CPG, and pharmaceutical and medical products. And when you look at those 3 perspectives, you'll see that the barriers of entry in each one of the countries that we are operating in are very different for each one of the 3. But this approach has allowed us to dramatically expand and accelerate our revenue growth over the short term, which is what should be expected out of a high growth cannabis company. So some of the examples of the things that we're doing. This is our food beverage products. It's founded by incredible people out of Colombia. Laura Londoño, if you're watching Netflix, she's the star of a series called Café, which is being very successful. Next was today, she's the founder of this brand. This brand is also partnering with Tonino Lamborghini. We're developing some beverages that are going to be launched in the North American market here at the end of Q1. So we're very excited about the luxury brand entering to the beverage cannabis space. We also have Flora Beauty, which is our skincare and topical division. This division was founded by Flora Vega. These lines of products are distributed broadly all over the world. We have it in Walmart.com in Mexico. We have it in Falabella in South America. Its distribution is dramatically increasing, and it's one of those examples of a low barrier of entry type of product, topical, that has been widely adopted and allows us to expand our distribution network. And then, of course, we're working in other categories, such as hemp textiles. This is an example of how nimble cannabis companies need to be and utilize the entire spectrum of product portfolio to enter different markets. With Startup Lounge, we were able to launch the brand less than a little bit over a year ago, but we already are distributing our brand at Macy's in the United States. And then, of course, quality means everything in cannabis. There has been a flurry of products, commoditized, low price, low quality products that have been distributed broadly, and that has generated a lot of apprehension from a consumer perspective and patient perspective. It's incredibly important that cannabis companies deliver on high quality manufacturing. That starts by having all the necessary certification and quality standards that are required to have a GMP certified facility or a GACP certified grow. That's what we have in our assets. An example of those is Flora Lab, which is our manufacturing facility that has 3 GMP certifications, and of course manufactures a wide range of products, from pharmaceutical products all the way to skincare and topicals. And as I mentioned, Flora Pharma is incredibly important. For cannabis companies to be able to be successful, it's important that we invest in research and development. And it's important that scientific-based research that is peer-reviewed, that is serious, such as the research that we are sponsoring with the University of Manchester, or the emergency request that we have with INVIMA, the FDA equivalent in the United States, in Colombia, to patent a product that will treat COVID. It's very important that cannabis companies invest in this type of research, because that way consumers will feel less uncomfortable about trying products that are incredibly beneficial for them. We know already empirically, they're telling us that they are treating insomnia and pain and anxiety and depression. But these are things that need to be corroborated by robust research, and it's important that we continue to invest in it. I started the presentation talking about Bucaramanga. I have to go back to it. It's a beautiful location. The location is one of the most optimal grow locations in the world. It's beautiful and breathtaking. It's located 3,000 feet above sea level and has a deep agricultural history. Seriously, if you ever have the opportunity to go and you're driving through the roads towards our farm, you'll see an incredible amount of diversity in terms of agricultural goods because the climate is exceptional. It's over 12 hours of daily sunlight, 3 constant winds of 3 miles per hour all year long, optimal rain, optimal natural resources. There's water deposits in the land. So the production cost is exceptionally low and is incredibly good for cultivation. And as probably many in the audience know, Colombia is known for its flower exports. Colombia is the #1 producer and the #2 exporter of flowers in the world. And the cannabis plant is a specialty cut flower. And for that reason, Colombia presents an incredible opportunity. And because of that, we have been able to achieve incredible success over a short amount of time. Our laboratory was completed at the end of last year. We have an extraction facility built to GMP standards. We're certified GACP. We're growing outdoors in an organic way on our second year of a 3-year certification period. And we're growing cannabis once again, both psychoactive and non-psychoactive, at one of the lowest production costs in the industry. So this is the cost, and of course, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. Just highlights once again that in order for you to compete in a global marketplace, the margins in the grow and cultivation are very low, and you have to find ways to grow and cultivate at a very low production cost. And then you have to have land to scale, and ultimate land. And what you see on this slide is just 50% of the land that we have available to grow. And clearly, we're not growing all that land. The demand and the ability to move all these products is not there yet on a global scale. But we do have the ability for when reform and legal changes happen in a meaningful way in the major economies, we're going to be able to supply that demand. So clearly, our company is a great example of what to do if you want to be in the market, in the cannabis marketplace on a global scale. You have to be exceptionally nimble. The story of our company 2 years ago is very different than the story of our company today. And for companies to be successful, they have to move very quickly with a sense of urgency, with a lot of transparency, but also they need to execute. And what you see on this slide is an example of what this execution means at a very high level. We IPO'd less than a year ago under the ticker FLGC. We have launched tremendous partnerships with distribution companies such as Stropi, with companies such as Avaria. We acquired Vessel and invested in Hoshi International, and of course, received all the necessary certifications and approval, all while being incredibly transparent with our investment community. So with that, I thank all of you, and I'm gonna stop and allow some time for questions.
All right, thank you so much. I do have the first question for you here, and that is, where would you say you see opportunity for Flora Pharma division internationally?
Well, let's start with Colombia. Obviously, I mentioned that the Colombian regulation and law changed in a very meaningful way, and now cannabis, both psychoactive and non-psychoactive, will be covered by all health insurance, which means that doctors can prescribe patients, and those patients will not have to take on the burden of buying cannabis formulations, which can be quite expensive. So that is the first stop for pharmaceuticals. But the great opportunity with pharma is once again in research. And we know there are many ailments that the cannabis molecules can treat. The first effort from our company is a clinical trial that we're launching in partnership with the University of Manchester in the UK, and is to treat fibromyalgia and related illnesses. And there are several formulations that we're utilizing. We're doing human trials, and this will allow us to have safe and peer-reviewed formulations that are going to be able to treat many ailments around pain. As many of you know, the opioid crisis is a significant one. It's an epidemic. It's highly addictive, and there's hundreds of thousands of people that are dying because of their addiction to opioids. Cannabinoids present a safer alternative to those, and treatment of pain-related illnesses will be a significant next step in the pharmaceutical landscape.
Thank you so much. And the next question I have for you are, what are your thoughts on the US market and what opportunities may wait for you there that you haven't yet taken advantage of, that is?
They're meaningful, and we're going to continue to work on the North American cannabis market. As many of you know, there's about 36, 37 states that have allowed for the use of medical marijuana, about 16, 17 states that have allowed for the use of recreational. We're waiting for the passage of this SAFE Act and the MORE Act, which will give access to more traditional financial instruments, will decriminalize marijuana, and then will also allow for the states to capture some tax revenues. Those changes will be meaningful, and we expect them over the short term. But we also expect that CBD and categories related to CBD in the consumer packaged goods will continue to grow as consumers have adopted this ingredient almost as a food additive in their daily lives. And we are very encouraged about the growth in this category, about the margins, and about the distributions, frankly. And we're going to remain vigilant about changes from a THC psychoactive perspective. So we expect it's going to take a little bit longer time, but there certainly will be an opportunity in the future to work in that landscape as well.
I actually had a question about the CBD. Have you heard of CBG? Is there a difference?
Yes, I mean, the cannabis plant has a significant number of molecules, and obviously many of them impact the endocannabinoid system in many different ways. There's still not enough research to corroborate the claimed benefits of each one of these molecules, Charlie, but they include CBN, CBG, THC, CBD. There's also variables or more diluted molecules out of these, of the ones that I just mentioned, like Delta 8, Delta 10, that are being utilized and broadly used. There are significant benefits to all of these molecules. And what is important here is that, once again, that the scientific community and the companies invest in scientific-based research so they can place claims and they can corroborate the empirical claims that consumers are telling us molecules like CBG have and are available to them.
Thank you for clarifying on that. And the next question I have for you are, what are the markets of focus for Flora and how do you navigate them?
Yeah, so I have a map of the world behind me. Our focus is a global focus, but clearly we like to use a Canadian saying, which is go where the puck is going, and that's precisely what is happening in the global cannabis marketplace. The regulatory framework is dictating the markets that we're going to enter. Last year was a great example of how we pivoted our strategy in terms of expansion based on what was happening. Markets like the US, markets like Mexico became very important to us. And of course, now into 2022, we're paying close attention to Israel, to Portugal, to Germany, because of the changes that are happening there. As part of a global company, it's very important that we understand I have a very robust regulatory team. So we are operating in a more transparent and legal way in each one of those jurisdictions. And that means that in a company that is already operating in over 50 countries, it means that your regulatory team needs to be very vigilant and very, very open to changing the strategy based on what's happening on a legal and regulatory standpoint.
Thank you. And what are the largest catalysts for international cannabis community and for Flora growth?
It's a great question, Charlie. I could answer it both ways. Macro catalysts will certainly be changes in the regulatory and legal landscape. Without a doubt, if there is a meaningful change in a country from a legal and regulatory standpoint, then we are set up from an infrastructure perspective, from a team perspective, from an operational perspective, to fulfill the needs of that market, whether it's wholesale, brand, or pharmaceutical. That has been put in place, but we need those geographies and those local governments to flip the switch. I think the entire industry is waiting to see some meaningful reform out of the top economies in the world. The biggest one, of course, being the United States. And when meaningful reform law changes happen in the United States, then the majority of the economies will likely follow, and we're going to be able to see a broad cannabis trade. But from an internal perspective, at Flora, we're not waiting. We're not a company that is going to wait for government officials to make decisions to become profitable. And we have changed and evolved our strategy as the external factors that are surrounding us have made us do so. And for that reason, we have placed a lot of emphasis on growing cannabis with a very high quality and a low cost, and developing great brands and great products that can be broadly distributed on a global scale.
Thank you. And I had another question for clarification. What was the name again of, was it Flora Skincare or the cosmetics?
It's Mind Skincare.
Thank you.
And then, that's correct.
And the next question we have is, how do you see, going back to Colombia, Colombia performing as an international cannabis exporter and supplier?
It will likely evolve as the flower trade in the 90s evolved. Colombia was not a major player in flowers in the early 90s. There was a significant amount of capital investment in agriculture, in know-how, in cultivation practices, and Colombia now is the #1 producer and #2 exporter of flowers in the world. We certainly expect Colombia to become the green bread basket of the world over the upcoming decade.
Well, it absolutely makes sense to me, considering it is a flower, is it not?
Yes.
All right, Luis, I think that's all the questions we've had come in thus far, unless there's anything else you'd like to go over or clarify for us again.
Oh, Charlie, once again, thank you so much to you and your team for inviting us. Of course, for anyone that is out there that would like to learn more about our company, we're a NASDAQ listed company under the ticker FLGC. We have a webinar this coming Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to highlight some of the state of the union of our company. We'll continue to communicate all the incredible changes and incredible execution that our team is going through, and we look forward to being a part of your show in the future again.